all my digital mutants, hello and welcome back. My name is Delmico L. Cunningham, better known as Dr. Media. I know. The last video has been quite a ways off. Well, things have been changing this year. I am in the process of changing jobs and also in the process of just changing a lot of things to be able to actually do more for my community, for the channel. Currently right now, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing the YouTube. I'm getting this stuff set up, and we're actually finally setting up our Patreon and getting all that stuff together. But while I was doing all that, I was thinking of just some of the new stuff that's been coming out, and I wanted to take a look at a new product from Adobe. And Adobe, because Adobe hasn't really put out a lot of new stuff in the past couple of years, but now they have, like with the inclusion of Muse, and we actually were able to see Adobe Comet at Adobe Max a couple of years back. That's something that's actually really something to look out for as well. But the program that I want to talk about today is Adobe Experience. So Adobe Experience, or Experience Design CC, is the Adobe program. It is basically trying to be a design prototype program. I think ultimately what this will be what Axure is for the UX and UI design world. This is what that will become. So if you ever made a high-end prototype inside of something like Axure, you're very familiar with being able to set variables, set buttons, move things around, and build a pretty decent mid to high level prototype inside of Axure. It's possible. You can even take that final code and build your final website if you choose to. Now, one thing that's probably a little bit daunting for people, if you're not, a Java user, or JavaScript rather, not Java, that's two different things. Java and JavaScript are not the same thing. So if you're a JavaScript user and having a script the front end, you're probably maybe not wanting to jump into Axure and be able to do everything inside of Axure RP. I love Axure RP. It's the program I started doing UX and UI design with, and it's the one that I've stayed with the longest because the tool set is just so clean. But with this, the Experience Design CC, which is XD, right? Experience Design. So with this program, Adobe is opening the door to be able to take on, I believe, Axure. And they do it in some really cool ways. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to save all of the files that I have. So currently right now, here inside of Photoshop, I've got my mock-up, my prototype. So I've got my prototype sitting in here with some images and stuff in it. So this is a high-level prototype, right? This is basically a functioning site at this point. So I've got some different layers with stuff laid out in here, and I'm gonna export this out of Photoshop with a really cool feature. If you haven't used it, then hopefully you will. The feature, I'm gonna save these layers, and I'm gonna save them all at one time. So instead of going in here and saying file and say save as, I'm gonna say I want to export. So I'm going to say file and export, and I'm going to export layers to file, which is really cool. So I'm going to come in here and browse for a destination, and let's just put our destination on the desktop. Let's make a new folder, and let's call this the Community app. All right. So I've got my application folder where I'm going to put everything at. I'm going to hit OK. Everything's in there. So I'm going to prefix this, and let's just call this app. So this is going to be the prefix for it. And the file types, I'm going to make the file types just JPEGs and do them at high quality. So do them at 12. And I can include the ICC profile if I want to, or I don't have to if you don't want to. So we can do that. So I'm going to say visible layers only, because you'll see I have a background layer in here that's just white, and I don't want to run that out. So what's nice is that this will basically, what it's doing is running an action and saving out our layers individually. but it's really cool because we got all of them to save at once. So I'm going to come in here, and one thing you'll notice, I'm just going to, just so it's not distracting, let's turn off all my desktop icons. So one thing you'll notice when you open up, if you're using CC, so right now I'm using Creative Cloud 2017 because this is where we're at right now. So if I close this, if I come in here and I just open up Experience Design CC, you'll notice when you open this program, it tells you that it is currently in beta. So this is a beta program. There's not even a splash screen yet for this program. There's no splash screen at all. So it just jumps directly into the program, which can be a little bit janky sometimes, but you know, like I say, it's beta. They're letting you use it, and they're getting feedback from people as people are using it. And I'm actually testing beta, so it's fun to be able to get something before everybody else is supposed to have it, right? This has like been the second beta that I've been in for this year, because I've also been in a game beta for Ghost Recon Wildlands, which is a really cool game that's coming out in next month. So anyway, as you can see, there's no splash screen. It just jumps right into the program. And I'm going to close down my Creative Cloud app, and I'm just going to maximize this. So this program opens up pretty simple. It brings you to the main page. Like I say, there's not even any title bar information. This is beta. This is true beta. So you can choose some different things, which is really cool. I can come here and say iPhone, or I can click on the little drop down in here, and I can choose a particular format, or I can say iPad, and you can see I can also choose Android. I can also choose the Surface Pro, and the 3 and the 4. I could do desktop, and I could choose, it's got some settings already in there, or I can just come here and click custom and put in custom settings. Well, for me, I know my app was built around iPhone, so I'm just going to go in here and do this iPhone 6 and 7, and I've got that chosen. So now I'm just going to come here and click on that little icon for that. So you'll see it gives me an artboard. This is an artboard. So if you're familiar with how InDesign works, if you're familiar with Illustrator, and even now Photoshop now has an artboarding system, especially when you're doing stuff for prototyping, because you can prototype inside of Photoshop as well. The cool thing about being able to use something like Experience Design is being able to quickly iterate through these pieces. So you'll notice there's not many things in the toolbar over here. I've got basically 7 tools over here. I have my classic select tool, I have a rectangle tool, I have a circle tool, or ellipse tool rather, I have a line tool, pen tool, text tool, and then at the very bottom I have an artboard tool. And you'll see the keys are actually mapped out in a very organized way. A is artboard, if you look here, T is text, P is pen, and then L is my line tool, E is my ellipse, and then my rectangle is R, and then as always my select tool is V. So you'll see it's very easy to navigate this interface. And then to the right hand side, I've got another panel over here. I've got some arrangement types and distribution types over here, and I can see what my width and my height is. So I've got width and height, and I also have my X and Y values for my 2D layout, and I also have appearance. So how do I get stuff in here? It's actually pretty simple. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say File, and I'm just going to say Import. And I'm going to import from that folder that I just made. It's on the desktop here. And let's see, there's the Community app. So the first one I'm going to go in here and get the home. And that's weird because it didn't throw my home out the right way. So let's go back here for just a second, because home's sitting right there. It should have thrown out that by itself, but no worries. So I'm going to say Save As. And let's go in here to desktop, and let's just save this out. You know, it happens from time to time, and let's just save on top of it. And yes, we want to save on top of it. Hit OK. Everything should be gravy now. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to import this, and you can see there's my import size, and it's a rather small image, right? So I've got this set up, and this might have been for an older, let's see, this might have been for an older version of iPhone. Yeah, there's really not any way that you can close this guy. I'm just gonna make a new one. It might be for iPhone 5. Let's just check. Let's just close this one. So this might be for an iPhone 5. So let's import again, get our clicky clicks, and looks like it does it. I'm not gonna really fret over it. So it's got a little bit of dead space at the very bottom of it. It's not a huge deal. This was the very first artboard that we had. So this is my home page. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and click on the artboard button, and I'm gonna click again and click again and again and again. And you can see that it makes me artboards, and they're already sized out. If I want to change it, you can see down here I could change this artboard and change it to a different sized artboard, and they're sitting over here because I'm using my artboard tool. And you'll see all the other artboards actually show up now that I'm using it. I can just go back and get my select tool and just hit delete on an artboard and take it out. So let's say for the rest of these, I'm just going to do Control-Shift-I, and let's get the rest of these in here. So let's import my blog page, and I'm just going to scale this up. Let's do the same thing here. My next page right here. Put this to the corner. So just like all the other Adobe apps, it has the kind of snapping features where things are snapping around and snapping to the edges of my artboards. It's not a bad thing. I've gotten used to it. When they first started doing it, I really hated it, but I've come to appreciate it, especially in InDesign when I'm doing layouts in InDesign. I really have come to appreciate the snapping tools that Adobe has implemented in all their programs. And you can always turn them off. At least for right now, here inside of Experience Design, there is no way to turn them off. I'm going to hit the A button one more time so I can get another artboard. And we're not going to get that artboard. We're going to get that 5S artboard. And then Control-Shift-I to do another import, one last import, and this has my map on it. And I'm going to hit V so I can get my select tool. So there we go, and boom. So I've got all my artboards set up. So that's kind of cool, right? I've got all my artboards. So let's say I want to show some kind of interactions. I want to prototype this out. Right now, what this lets me do is I can come here and go to my prototype tab. The prototype tab is really cool because if you'll see when I click on the artboards themselves will actually have these little tabs on the right hand side of them, or the graphics will have those on the side of them. So what this lets me do is if I come here to this graphic and I left mouse click and drag this to the other artboard, you'll see it's going to say target is going to be my iPhone S2 or -2, which is my artboard 2, and what the transition will be is I want it to dissolve, or I want it to slide left, or I want it to slide up. I'll say I want it to slide up. And we can choose easing on this, so I can ease it out. I'll say ease it in. All right, well, actually, we'll see. Yeah, we'll ease this in. So we'll ease into this next one. So this next one, I'm going to come here and left mouse click and drag it to the other artboard. And I want this one to slide up as well, and I want it to ease in. Let's do this again. And you can see now that I've picked that, it was my last thing that I picked. It's going to keep doing the same thing as I go through these. So those are all linked up. Now what's really cool is if I come in here and I click on the little play button up at the very top, I'm going to say desktop preview. I'm going to click that, and when you see when I left mouse click on my actual images, you'll see that it does indeed basically slide through my design, which is kind of freaking cool. Now this last picture right here, I want to take this last one and I want to link this one all the way back to the beginning. So if you're used to using like Adobe Encore, when Adobe Encore is still big for DVD, for actual DVD authoring, or if you've used After Effects, because for the longest time, doing my interactions and having some kind of meaningful and mindful way to show interactions, I was doing those inside of After Effects. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's hard. It's just a unnecessary step in my belief, because I'm having to use my compositing um, software to basically build an interaction. And I was just thinking like a week and a half ago, wouldn't it be great if there was a Adobe product that lets you do prototypes, and the prototypes were actually quick and easy and you could go through and bust out. With this, when they get this really working, you could break down a prototype in mere hours. Like you could probably do six, well, probably like 3 or 4 in maybe 2 or 3 hours. You could do all these different prototypes and have a really nice high level prototype, and that be something that's really cool and you can get through. So I can preview this out. I'm pretty sure that these things are being probably saved as flash files, or HTML5 or something of that nature. But you can see this is really cool. They're all working the right way. Let's go in here and let's change up some of these transitions. Let's say this one here, we slide in from the left. So when we're doing text, we'll say the text slides in from the left. And when we're doing pictures and stuff like this, it'll actually still roll up. So let's go in here and preview. So you can see, there we go. Look at that. And go boom, boom, and then boom, boom. So I'm actually able to build really nice interactions and show off my interface and a really working prototype. And I did that in less than 20 minutes. Honestly, if I had just ran through it, it would take like 5 minutes, because I've done all the work. I've got all the copy, I've got all the styles laid down. All that stuff has already been taken care of and really been worked out. The last thing was to go in here and actually do the interactions, and that was really, really quick. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this beta look at Adobe Experience Design. They kind of need a better name, like AXD. There we go. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at AXD beta version, and hopefully you'll continue to follow the beta version of Adobe Experience Design as they bring new features to this and start to tighten it up for actual production and actual launch. This is, to me, is something very akin to how Muse was when it first came out. When Muse first came out, it was, not saying that it wasn't a great program, but it had like 6 buttons on the whole toolbar, which I'm a fan of. I think less is more, especially as a UX designer. Less is more. But you know, I've seen that program kind of mature over the last couple of years, and Muse is something that I would actually build a website in. I would tell others to use. If you're not a programmer and you're not a front end developer, then you can build a website in Muse and have something that looks really good. So anyway, once again, my name is Delmico L. Cunningham, better known as Dr. Media, and if you like video content like this, where I'm bringing out some new software, showing off new things like that, then do me a favor and click the subscribe button and join the community. And as we said, we're gonna get the Patreon up. Patreon should be up by the end of this week. I know I've been saying it for a while. Patreon's coming, Patreon's coming. I was really trying to sit down and think about what we wanted to offer for the Patreon. So I wanted it to be something that was going to be worthwhile to the users, and not just, oh, hey, you get to see, you know, behind the scenes stuff. There's really not a bunch of behind the scenes stuff to see here in the Phoenix Cave.